Today's flow is going to be geared toward runners. So if you're not a runner, don't let that discourage you from flowing along today. The practice will be sort of a yin kind of style, so slower movements and a lot of stretching. We're going to be focusing a lot on the lower body, so hips, hip sockets, quads, hamstrings, but we will have some upper body sprinkled in there because when you do any sort of running or endurance level physical activity, you do work all parts of the body, so definitely want to touch on a little bit of everything. So I hope you enjoy this. If you are a runner, go you. I think the running community is just as amazing as the yoga community, and I am lucky enough to participate in both. So let's get started. Okay, so let's come to the back of our mats and find a child's pose. So knees can be a little bit apart. They don't necessarily have to be super wide. We're going to bring our arms straight out in front of us, and then the head is going to rest in between the arms. Forehead down, forearms can be up off the mat, pressing into the hands. Or you can let the forearms rest down, just giving them a little break, plugging shoulders into the sockets. And just start to breathe. Taking this time out to notice how your body is feeling, how the breath is traveling in and out of the body. Maybe you just finished a run, so really checking into those tight areas, those areas of tightness or tension, breathing into those tight areas, and just keeping those in mind throughout practice, making sure you're not, overdoing it with any of these stretches, doing what feels good, not forcing anything. So let's just take a couple more breaths like this, inhaling through the nose, and letting the breath exit in whatever way feels good to you. One more breath like this. Letting those hips sink toward the heels, belly resting on the thighs. Good. And then on your next exhale, walk your hands over to the right side of the mat. Maybe they even come off the mat. And take a nice left side body stretch. So forehead rests between the arms. You have the option to place that left palm on top of the right hand just to deepen the stretch a little bit. And then same thing here, breathe. And relax the hips. Good. Walk it through center and then take it over to the other side. Forehead comes down. And again, you have that option to stack the right palm on top of the left hand. Breathe. Good. Come back through center. Round yourself up into a tabletop position. And then we're going to take that right arm up to the sky and then thread it underneath the left arm. So you're bringing your right cheek, right ear to the mat, and then extending that left arm straight out in front of you, stretching out your right shoulder. You have the option to take that left hand and bring it around to the sacrum or low back area, or maybe you even reach around and grab that right hip. Just doing whatever feels good. And continuing to breathe. One more breath. And if the arm is behind you, extend it straight out in front. Slowly push yourself back up into that tabletop position, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So left arm reaches, thread it underneath the right,
And breathe. Good. Slowly unwind. Come back into that tabletop and then walk your hands forward. Keep your hips above your knees and melt your chest into the mat. We're finding puppy pose. So chin can rest down if you have the space to do that, or forehead. It's still pretty early on in practice, so if this doesn't feel good, just take the forehead down. And again, we're breathing. Toes are untucked. Knees are pointing out in front of you, toward the hands, toward the front of the mat. And we're breathing. Good. Slowly start to lift your chest up off the mat, and then keeping your elbows and your forearms and hands pressed right where they are, slide your hips forward, lift the chest, coming into Sphinx pose. So from here, really pressing in, your elbow should be right underneath your shoulders, feeling that in the low back. And just breathe here for a couple moments. Maybe even bending the knees, flexing the feet, and just windshield wiping feet back and forth here, being really gentle. Stretching out those hips. Good. Point the toes, release it down. And then take your right forearm parallel with the front edge of the mat. Again, keeping that elbow underneath your shoulder. You're going to bend that left knee and bring that heel towards your glute. So we're stretching the quad out now. And your gaze can be down in front of you at the mat or back at your foot, whatever feels good for your neck, your back. Again, just taking it nice and slow, breathing in to the muscles. Don't force or push anything, just taking this time out to give your body that TLC that it needs. Let it restore itself. Good, release, and then take it over to the other side. Noticing the difference in the quad stretch on each side, and just taking note of that. My left quad tends to be a little bit tighter than the right side. Good, and release that right foot, very nice. Come back into your Sphinx pose, working that low back a little bit more, so pressing into the hips, lifting your chest, shining your heart forward, press into the hands, and then straighten the elbows. So using your low back strength here, good, set it down. Do that twice more. Straighten and lift. Exhale, set it down. One more time, bring it up. Beautiful, release. All right, now from here we're going to tuck our toes. Lift your hips up. We're finding a forearm plank. Firing up the core. Making sure you're not dropping the hips down. You want your hips lifted, using your core to do so. We're just going to be here for a few more breaths. Breathe. Very nice. Now from here, start to walk the feet in, finding dolphin. So you're bringing your ears between your biceps. Again, we'll just be here for a couple breaths. Trying to press those heels down toward the mat, tailbone up toward the sky. Good. And if you have to come down to your knees for this next transition, please do so. Be really mindful. But if it's in your practice, see if you can straighten one arm and then the other, coming into your downward facing dog. First one of our flow today, so feel free to pedal the knees out. Taking any movements here that's going to feel good for your hips, hamstrings. Find your alignment in that down dog, so send the tailbone to the sky, melt your chest forward, heels rooting down toward the mat. Very good. On our next inhale, that right leg's going to lift up to the sky. And then step it through and walk your hands center so you're facing the long edge of your mat. First, our heels are going to point in, toes are going to point out. We're going to sink our hips down, finding a goddess squat. So bring your hands to the inner thighs, pressing thighs away from each other, and then making sure your tailbone is down toward the floor and your knees are pointing out toward your toes. So on your next exhale, take right shoulder forward, left shoulder goes back behind you. We're twisting over to the right. Looking out behind that left shoulder. Good. Inhale at center, lift the chest, and then exhale. Take it over to the other side. Very nice. Calm center. Inhale, lift the chest. Straighten the legs. Find your 5-pointed star. And then we're going to bring our big toes and heels out this time. Hands to your hips to start. So we're coming into a standing wide-legged position. And from here, we're really going to start to work our hamstrings and our core. So bring your hands together at your heart, leading with your chest, but hinging at the hips. Send the glutes, the butt back behind you. Bring your chest forward. We're going to fold down halfway. So we're coming into this half fold. Keeping your back flat. Inhale, lift it up. Exhale, fold. Maybe this time you bring the arms straight out in front of you. Again, you have this flat back. You should really be feeling this in the hamstrings. Good. Inhale, lift it up, hinging from your hips. Last time, fold. Making sure you're putting weight in your toes, that you're not sinking back into those heels. Good. Bring fingertips down to the mat, lifting up halfway, so we're in a half lift now. And then exhale, fold it in wide-legged forward fold. So this fold should be coming from the hips, from the center of the body. Release the neck. Just finding your edge, sitting with that. And then from here, bend over into that right knee. Lift your chest. So we're stretching out the inside of that left thigh. Maybe you even come down into Skandasana if that's in your practice. It's okay to keep fingers down on the mat. It's okay to keep that foot down. Just doing whatever feels good for you. Fueling your body, giving your body what it needs. Come back through center, and bend it over into the left knee. Breathe. Beautiful. Come back through center. Again, we'll lift it up halfway. Come all the way up to stand. And now we're going to shift our feet into pyramid pose. So right toes pointing toward the front of the mat. Bring that left foot back behind you 45 degrees. Hips are squared forward. So just like what we just did in our wide-legged forward fold, you're going to bring hands to hips, and then we're going to take those half folds. So folding from the hips flat back, hands can be at heart, straight out in front of you, gaze is down at the mat. You may have to play with the position of the feet in order to square your hips forward, and then using your core, lift it up. Good. 2 more times. Exhale, fold.
Inhale, lift. Last one. Folding from the center, flat back. Very nice. Frame that front foot. Bend into that front right knee, find your plank. And then send those hips straight up and back to the sky. Downward facing dog. This time left foot lifts. Step it through. We're finding pyramid pose on the left side. So again, hips are squared forward. Back right foot at 45 degrees. And this front knee is straight but soft. So we're going to take those folds, those half folds, flat back. Lift it up. 2 more times. Fold. Reach. Last time. Fold. Good. And reach. Step the feet together at the top of the mat. I'm going to face you for this next little stretch. Alright, sort of realigning our body, coming into our mountain pose. We're going to take some shoulder shrugs now. So just bringing shoulders up by the ears. And then relax them down. Letting the fingers sink toward the floor. Imagining your arms are like jelly when you release. Inhale. Shrug. Exhale. Release. Last one. Bring them up by the ears. Shrug. Good. Release. We'll do a little stretch across the chest with the left arm. Same thing, other side, switch it up. Nice, release that. Okay, so we'll cross our right ankle over our left now. Inhale, reach your arms up to the sky. And then exhale, hinging at the hips, slowly fold over, releasing the crown of the head toward the floor. So pretty typical runner stretch, either for a warm-up or a cool-down. Letting yourself just melt into it. Good, and we'll slowly roll up to stand, stacking one vertebrae at a time, and then realign, readjust, change sides, inhale, reach. Exhale, fold. Good. And round all the way up to stand, one vertebrae at a time. Nice. Uncross the legs. Inhale, lift it up. Exhale, hands come to your heart. All right, now we're going to bring our feet about mat width distance apart, heels slightly in, toes out. So a little bit more narrow than the short edge of your mat. You're going to bring your hands to your heart. And we're going to start to sink our hips back and down into a yogi squat. So from here, you can set a block up underneath you if you need that extra support, if you can't go too deep. It's okay to come onto the toes and bring the chest forward or hands down if you need to. The goal here is to really sink your hips down, bring your chest forward, elbows on the insides of the knees, lifting up. Really great running stretch. Good to really incorporate into a daily practice no matter what your exercise regimen is. Yogi squat is great for a number of reasons for the body, so definitely good to keep in mind for that. Couple more breaths here.
Release the hands down. Shift your weight forward and then bring the knees down. We're going to come into a tabletop position. So we're lining our hips up, our knees up under our hips, and our wrists under our shoulders. We're going to wring out that spine, rinse it out a little bit by just taking some nice gentle cat-cow. So inhale, lift the chest. Exhale, bring it in, tuck it in, round in. Inhale, lift. Exhale, round. Last one, inhale, lift it up. And exhale. Beautiful, round it in. And then coming back to that neutral spine, this time I want you to take that right foot straight back behind you, tucking your right toes. And then you're going to draw this sort of half circle, bringing your right toes over to the left, and then taking your gaze back at that right foot. So we're stretching out our side body. Toes are tucked. Keeping the alignment in the front half of the body. Good. Take it straight back behind you. Press out through that back heel. And then set the knee down, setting up for the same thing on the other side. Just noticing where you're feeling the stretch. I really feel that in my hip. That part of my side body feels so good. Awesome. Take it straight back. Press out through that back heel. And then set it down. Come down to sit. Inhale, lift up. Exhale. Hands to our heart. Very nice. We're going to bring our feet out to one side. Coming down to sit and then coming all the way down to our backs. All right, beautiful. Bring your arms down by your sides and bring the heels a little bit closer to the glutes. So feet are pressed down, knees are bent. Take your arms out to a T and then heel toe the feet a little bit wider than your hip width distance and just start to windshield wipe the knees back and forth. Stretching out the hips, pressing into the low back. Very nice. And then bring your feet back into this sort of, like we're gearing up for bridge pose, even though we're not. We'll take our right ankle, cross it over the left knee. So right foot is flexed, right knee pressing away from the body. And this is a supine figure 4 stretch, so if this feels like enough of a stretch for you, you can stay right here. You can bring the stretch a little bit closer to the body by interlacing fingers behind that left thigh. So you're going to feel that a little bit deeper into your right hip, right glute. Or you can take the left foot all the way up to the sky. And then of course you have the option to rock a little side to side, just massaging out that low back. Find stillness. Press that right knee a little bit more away from the body. Good. Release that left foot back down to the mat nice and slow. And we'll unwind. Same thing other side. So setting up, left knee pressing away, left foot flexed. And feeling it out. You may not necessarily be symmetrical on both sides. So this might be enough of a stretch on this side. Or vice versa, you may want to go a little deeper on this side if you didn't on the other side. Just taking note of whenever you're modifying on a specific side when it comes to hip tightness, hamstring tightness, especially for runners. We tend to have a side we favor, and over time, if you don't do restorative poses like this or stretch before or after a run, it can really do damage to the body that can sometimes be permanent. So taking the time to stretch it out, whether before or after, maybe on a rest day, definitely important. So
Very nice. Wherever you're at, go ahead and release. Nice and slow. Bringing the arms out to a T, or you have the option to goalpost the arms by bending at the elbows and fingers pointing straight back behind you. Bring your knees in towards your chest, and then we'll drop them over to the right side, taking a little supine spinal twist. Gaze is up at the ceiling or out over left shoulder, and then you have the option to take that right hand on top of the left thigh to deepen the twist. Closing the eyes. Starting to deepen the breath. Good. Release that top hand. Bring your knees center and then drop them over to the left. Same thing on this side, looking up at the ceiling or out over opposite shoulder. The left hand can come on top of right thigh in this case. Beautiful. Coming back through center, give yourself a nice squeeze in, hugging around the knees, maybe even bringing nose toward knees, curling up into a little ball, and then extending straight out. Let the feet flap open, arms resting by your sides, palms facing up to the sky, and taking a Shavasana. Just letting all the benefits of your practice sink in. Taking this time out to really allow yourself to feel gratitude for your body, for all that it can do for you, especially if you're a runner. We are so lucky to be able to move our bodies in such a way that requires stamina, healthy bones, healthy hearts, joints, all things that we often take for granted, but running is a privilege, truly. So thank your body for carrying you miles and miles. Thank your feet, thank your legs for the support, and especially thank your mind, because running is so much more than just a physical practice. It is a mindful journey. To make sure you press on and you keep going and you don't stop. That takes extreme mindfulness. Beautiful. Bring the knees in. If you want to take a longer Shavasana, you can pause the video and just lie here for a bit longer. But we'll roll over to one side and pause. Taking time out to check in with the body once more, see how you're feeling. And then when you're ready, slowly pushing yourself up to sit. It's really important to take care of our bodies, especially if you're a runner. So making sure you're using your rest day to stretch or stretching before or after a nice long run. So thank you again, sending you love and light. Namaste.